Welcome back to Man Across New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling, and shall we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today. There was a slight pause there because I forgot what the rest of the sentence is. You know, you would have thought after doing it about 800 times or something, you sort of get it like stuck in your head, but you'd be surprised how often I forget what the intro actually is. But anyway, we're here. It's the start of a heat wave here in the UK, which maybe you've heard about it on the news. Certainly, if you're from the UK, maybe if you're in Europe, maybe if you live anywhere else. I don't really know how often heat waves are covered in other countries. Probably not all that often, but the UK is probably not the only country experiencing a heat wave right now. I'm sure lots of other countries are. At least I think a lot of countries in Europe are. Like even in Sweden, it's like 30-something degrees, which is pretty crazy for how north it is. Anyway, hello there, everyone. Right now in Fawnhollow, it's 4:41 PM on Monday, July 18th, 2022. We're having a bug off course this Saturday, which we're not going to participate in, but whatever. So you might be like, how are you doing on this heatwave day, dear darling? You know, it's reaching, hold on, check my phone, see what weather temperatures are reached today. It's 36 right now. It does feel a bit hotter in my room right now than 36, but it's not actually like, I'm not dying as much as I thought I would, but that's probably because of the fact that I actually took quite a few precautions. You know, I've actually changed up my what I'm doing quite a lot compared to what I do on other days. Like on other days, you know, it's just like highs are like 32 or something. I'll just be like, oh, it's so hot or whatever. But this one today, I actually changed it up. Like I've not even opened my curtains. I'm sitting here in the dark, and I've been sitting here in the dark the entire day because otherwise the sunlight will get into my room and it will heat things up like a ridiculous amount. Like already these windows are double glazed, so if I let the sunlight in as well, they're going to be like incredibly hot to touch. I don't even know how hot to touch they are right now. Let me touch them. They're kind of warm, I will say. But it's meant to trap the heat in. But of course, I got quite thick curtains, so a lot of the heat does not actually, like, or at least a lot of the light doesn't transfer through. So it's relatively dark in here, but on the plus side, not too hot. It is still reasonably hot in this room. You know, I'm wearing loose clothing as always, as you probably should do in hot weather. I've got my litre bottle of water, which I'll take a sip from, you know, to stay hydrated out through every day. Like I kept my my window like a little bit open throughout the night, and then when I woke up in the morning, I closed it because obviously you're meant to keep your window open for when the outside is colder than the inside. But if you want to cool down, it is. So during the night time it is. But when it starts getting to like, you know, morning hours, like I don't know when I actually closed it, maybe around 10 or something. No, maybe 9. I honestly can't recall. Somewhere around like 9 or 10 is I actually close the window to make sure, you know, because now the outside's going to be hotter than it is the inside. So I'm just like, keep that hotness outside, you know. What else have I done? Not really much else. Is it the main thing, which, you know, is probably the biggest difference, is the fact that I just have not opened my curtains to not let the light in, because it's still pretty, you know, bright outside. Like my windows aren't necessarily always directly in direct sunlight, but they are like the sun does kind of shine into them, especially at certain times of day. But it's really helped at keeping this room like manageable, you know. And in fact, I'm staying hydrated. You know, making sure to, you know, eat cold things I can. You know, just had a bowl of like not frozen grapes, but like quite cold grapes from the refrigerator. Very good, very hydrating for one thing. You know, grapes are very quite high in hydro content is not how you describe it, in water content, and tasty for another thing, and the fact that in the fridge make them, you know, you like cool down your stomach. I also didn't have tea this morning. Normally I start off my day with like some breakfast item and tea. I didn't have tea today because I was just like, it's going to be too hot. I don't, you know, want to ingest a particularly hot liquid. What am I doing? But this stuff is a wheel setting, so, you know, stop with that. Yeah, no. I mean, it's just the most notable thing is I've just been sitting here in the dark for most of today. You know, I've no sense of what the time is right now. That's not true. It's almost 5. Here I am. But it's very strange, I suppose, just sitting in the dark all day. But to be fair, so it's just hot weather. It was particularly strange, you know, and I'll probably be doing a very similar thing tomorrow as well, because, you know, it's going to be insanely hot, and but the more prepared you are to deal with these things, the better. I actually saw that what's awesome is the fact that on all my social media that I've been seeing is there's tons of basically like tips being like, this is how you can survive in really hot weather. And a lot of cool things I've seen is being like, hey, I'm, you know, from a country who gets hot weather all the time. These are some like pro tips or whatever. And the one I always see is like wet a towel, put it in the freezer or something, and then take it out, and then, you know, like cool yourself down with it or that sort of thing. I think that's a pretty good idea. I don't feel like I need it yet, because now I just feel like hot rather than like scorching, like boiling. Don't dark but hot, I suppose, at the same time. And there's another one that was like how to make like a condensation cooler, which is, you know, pretty cool. I never really considered that before. It's like you have a fan, and then you just basically put wet towels, not damp towels, I don't know, on a clothes horse, and then you have your fan blowing into it, and then I guess because of it evaporating, sort of like sucks out heat. Hold on, I was actually going to sit down and try and think about how that works, because it's like, how does evaporation work? Like it cools. Like, it's a reason we sweat, it cools us down, is because, you know, you get like sweat on your skin and whatnot, and then as the water evaporates, it because it's changing from a liquid to a gas form, it requires like a certain amount of energy or change to do that, right? Well, it needs a temperature change, or no, it doesn't necessarily need a temperature change, does it? I guess it could depend on the pressure or whatever, but because of like a specific latent heat, I can't remember, yeah, or something for like the change of state or something. It's how I remembered it in my head. I don't think it's scientific at all, but it's basically along the lines of it changing state requires energy, and that energy it takes from the heat. So by it evaporating, it like leaves you feeling cooler. That's how sweat works, which I assume that's how it works with a condensation cooler as well, like evaporating from the towel. It of course using energy, so it sort of like sucks up heat from a room sort of passively to do that. Not very scientific, I know, you know, it's been quite a long time since I've done thermodynamics, I don't really recall, but it's just one of the things I remember, like how human beings keep cool, because it's one thing you never really think about when you're younger. It's like, why does sweat cool you down? Oh man, I just remember I had an interview for like a school when I was much younger, and then like the interviewer was basically trying to get me to say that we sweat to cool ourselves down in the heat, but she kept describing it so weirdly that I didn't understand what she was saying. She was like, how do you cool down in the heat? And I said a load of things that you do to like cool down, like, you know, with a fan or something, you eat like cold, consume something cold. I can't even remember what I said. This is age ago. It was like this is for secondary school, so I was only like 11 at the time, if you're wondering. And then she was like, what about one where you shed off water or something? It's not shed off water, you like expel water from your body. What do you think about that? And I was like, what, you like cry or something? Or and I was like, maybe you like, you know, go to the bathroom, shall we say, pop to the loo. And she was like, you think when we... She got really snarky, I remember. Or no, not snarky, but like she got like, you know, a little bit of attitude. And she was, you know, clearly fed up with this 11-year-old who doesn't understand what she was saying. She was like, so when you're really hot, you go to the bathroom? I'm like, no. But I was also like, I don't understand what you're saying. I worked it out eventually. I don't know why I remember that. It's sort of stuck in my mind. I don't remember anything else about like that interview I had with her. Anyway, funny time. Anyway, so you never really think about like how sweat works, because certainly when I was younger, I was like, how does sweat work to cool you down? Oh, you know, it's like, you know, water's cold and it feels cold to your skin, so it probably like takes up heat that way. But when you think about it, it's like sweat's actually kind of hot, you know, if you ever touch it. Oh, sorry, Captain. I was just spamming a button, and I was meant to listen to your entire song, but I forgot. But it's like sweat's quite hot to touch. I mean, because it comes from your body, which, you know, is internally is quite, you know, warmish to begin with. You never really think how like these cooling systems work, I suppose. There's other things like your hairs are meant to like lie flat down on your skin or whatever, because the reason you have body hairs is so it can trap sort of like a layer of air as insulation. Oh wait, does that make you hotter or colder? No, that's when you're cold, to trapping heat. Yeah, so when you're hot, it lies down end on end to make sure that doesn't happen. So you have like maximum conduction with the air, I suppose. I don't really know what else. It's mainly sweat. Sweat is the biggest way to cool down, isn't it? For humans. I can't really think of other ways. I suppose it's like staying in the shade, staying in cool places like that. Sorry, having some water. I'm gonna certainly be having a lot of water because I want to stay hydrated. I mean, staying in the shade is quite a big thing. I mean, take it from me, I've been doing it literally this entire day. Well, not quite literally this entire day. It's really weird, like, you know, walking around my home and just, you know, all the curtains and blinds are closed. It's like, what time is it outside? But to be fair, a lot of the blinds are partially translucent, so you can still sort of see the sunlight. And to be fair, I can still see the sunlight in my room. I can see it like peeking out the sides and the bottom of the curtains. I also did notice in my room there were a few bugs sort of like flying about. Not flying about, just sort of chilling. like I saw next to my doorway there was like a spider, and I'm not scared of spiders, so I sort of just like let it chill, because I was like, oh, it doesn't look like a dangerous spider particularly, it just kind of looks like it's vibing. I think it's just like a garden spider or something. I mean, I also saw a moth, and I was like, that moth is dangerously close to that spider web. I think it was probably going to fly into it at any point now. And now I'm looking at my door frame, I don't see the moth anymore, so I think it might have either flown away somewhere, or it flown into a spider web, so in which case I guess the spider's eaten quite well. Anyway, insects just tend to find a way to just somehow get out of my room at some point. I don't know how they do it, but whatever. And you might be like, how do so many bugs get into your room when you open a window? Well, it's because in the UK we don't have like screens on our windows or anything like that, because we don't often open them. I suppose to try and cool off or whatever. So we don't often open them so bugs can sort of just like freely come in and come out, and as they see fit. But yeah, I don't know. I might have an ice cream later to really cool off. I don't know. I'm not even that like a bigger fan of ice cream or whatever, but I know I have some Magnums in the freezer, which I might have as a bit of a nice sort of treat, as a way to chill out in this hot weather. Trying to think. What else do you even talk about? I don't know. It's just weird sort of being in the dark like this the entire time. I'm trying to think of times I've just like been in, like it's happened before probably, where I've just like sat in darkness the entire day just to like avoid any heat or anything like that, because while I do like the shade and the darkness, I suppose to a certain extent, I do like the sunlight as well, natural lighting and all that, but 1 or 2 day sacrifice just to like not completely overheat in this sort of weather, I think is a worthy sacrifice in this sort of scenario. And hopefully you're taking similar precautions to make sure you're not totally overheating. If you have access to air conditioning, more power to you for absolutely using that. I would consider using it if I had any, but of course, if you don't know the statistic, it's like less than 1% of UK houses have air conditioning in them. And the reason for that is like most not in recent years, but like at least in the past decade or so, or when houses were constructed, they're not really constructed with air conditioning in mind nor installed, because in the UK we're quite a moderate climate, and when I was younger especially, like the highest I'd ever get up to would be like 26, 27 degrees, and those are the sort of days we're like, whoa, scorching hot, go out into the garden, play around with the garden hose until the government bans the hosepipe ban, which is fair enough, don't want to waste all that water. Other things like eat some ice cream, tan in your garden if you want. And then the lowest it get would be like -10 or something. Probably might not even get that cold or whatever. But of course nowadays, with climate change and all that, sorry, it's like slam my controller down by accident. Temperatures get much more wildly higher, much more wildly lower, which is a lot to deal with, certainly. So that's why a lot of houses haven't installed air conditioning, because we haven't really needed it, except for these past like few years, where it's becoming more of a probable, I'm not going to say necessity per se, but it's becoming much more likely that it would actually see some use. I would wager, because it's a thing that you always say is like, oh, it's because houses in the UK never have air conditioning. Why don't we have air conditioning? Because we don't need it. It kind of seems like you need it in these recent years. Yeah, kind of does, doesn't it? I suppose that there's going to be some tipping point at some point where people start installing air conditioning, probably because you just had enough, or like the frequency of these hot days become frequent enough that you justify actually installing them. But it's not been too bad. Like, it's been hot over these past few summers, but most of the time it's been concentrated with throughout the entire summer, and I'd say it adds up to probably less than a fortnight is my guess, which is dealable. And the biggest problem with air conditioning in the UK is the fact it's grossly expensive, because again, there's not much demand for it in the first place, so the supply is very low in the first place. So if you do want to install that, I don't know how much it costs to install that, like proper air conditioning. I'm going to guess it's in the thousands, in which case most people in the UK will probably be like, I'm just going to buy a fan, or make a condensation cooler if that so partakes your fancy. Which is a good way to cool off. If anything, I could be wearing even like cooler clothes, because even this is like a bit much. What if I just had like wore a tank top or something? I don't even know if I own a tank top, I'm going to be honest. Or perhaps if you want to, you could wear nothing at all to be properly not insulate your body, I suppose, with clothing. But that kind of mileage may vary depending on your living circumstances, I'd certainly say. Sorry, just drinking some water. If anything, you know what, Brewster, you should serve some iced coffee. I think that'd be perfect in these summer months. But you know, he's quite the connoisseur when it comes to coffee, and luckily my own Animal Crossing character does not have to deal with hot weather so much in the confines of Fawnhollow. Anyway, I don't know if people are really, you know, sort of like vibing with the hot weather. What was crazy is like not crazy, but like certainly at first, which for hot weather in some months, which from what I record is like how many things are just like how many like companies or whatever being like, please don't do whatever X Y Z. You know, a lot of people are working being like, please don't come into work. Part of the reason why is obviously, you know, driving is going to be like a nightmare. And if you park your car, I suppose, in the car park and there's no shading or anything, your car is probably going to heat up to like 50, 60 degrees Celsius or something inside. Okay, maybe not that hot. I don't know, but it's going to be outrageously hot. Also, like tons of things like that. Apologies, a little bit of a pause, but I'm back now. So about hot weather and oh, you know what was I actually remember what I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about the fact I you know, check my email today as per usual. Check your emails. Well, I suppose you don't necessarily need to if you don't really need to all that often. You know, it kind of depends what you do. But I checked my emails and actually got an email from TFL, basically, you know, because, you know, I've got an account with TFL, you know, used to have an Oyster card and all of that, which I used to top up, and it was like, you know, dear darling, well, I wasn't, they addressed me by my name, but still, please do not take the train at all, if possible, on Monday and Tuesday, because, you know, I didn't read the rest of it, because I'm not actually going to take a train today or tomorrow. But the thing I saw people talking about is because of the hot weather, the infrastructure actually behind the railway system in the first place is not necessarily designed to encompass the temperatures that we will be reaching on Monday and Tuesday. Part of the reason because, you know, we don't often, well, when they were constructed whenever back in like 1900s or something, they probably weren't expecting 40 degree Celsius summers or anything like that. So certain things like this infrastructure is not necessarily going to hold up to it, and you might be like, how does it not hold up to it necessarily? Well, it's because a lot of things, and I assume it's because it's metal, and metal tends to, you know, change its shape and warp and distort itself under different temperatures. You know, it's a thing that like a lot of metals heat up. Well, I think all metals heat up when they're warm and then shrink again when they're cold. Also, the metals have different properties, and I assume like different sort of like ductile strength or tensile strength, etc., etc. And because train tracks need to be, you know, rather precise in that sort of thing. Also, on train tracks under like a huge amount of like tension at like all times or something. I'd imagine that sort of becomes undone slightly when the temperature gets really out of whack, like it will be today and tomorrow. So I don't really know how railway engineers are going to be dealing with that, but they're professionals. They probably know what they're doing. I say taking a sip of water. They probably know what's happening. They probably, you know, this heat wave was something which a lot of people saw coming. That's probably something that they would have planned for, at least, you know, had an idea of how to tackle. I don't really know what they're doing, but either way, it's just a good idea not to travel on any sort of like public transport. Well, not necessarily any sort of public transport, but travel at all today if you don't have access to places where you can get like good breaks. If you can stay in the shade, etc., etc. Because things, especially like the trains, like if you've never ridden on like underground subways before, like we have in London, like in TFL, it gets really hot underground sometimes. Often because there's just a load of people in like quite an enclosed space. Not the ventilation isn't always amazing. So the heat tends to sort of like accumulate down there in certain in certain ways, which can be quite a nightmare to sort of like travel with. But you know, oftentimes the temperatures are sort of more manageable enough in normal weather, but you know, in hot weather it's going to be a whole nother story, I would imagine. I don't know what it's actually like right now on public transport because I haven't been on it. Don't really plan on going on it, but you know, if you do, just be careful, I suppose. Luckily, actually, a lot of train, especially more modern lines, and TFL have air conditioning in, so it's not going to be the worst thing in the world, depending on the train line you take. But some of the older ones, like I think Piccadilly line might not have air con. Oh, maybe it does. I can't remember. I know they all. I think they all now have vents like on the trains. To I guess circulate air or whatever, but I don't think many have air conditioning. I think things like the ones which are like the big overground, like the Hammersmith and City, the Circle and the Metropolitan line, I think all have air conditioning on. Also the overground trains probably have air conditioning on at the same time, and I'm not really sure off the top of my head. But you know, if you're travelling, you're gonna have to put air conditioning on, like in the car. You're gonna need to have air conditioning. The bus, I've not been on many buses, but the buses I've been on, thing is, I've never been on hot summer months. So if they've got air conditioning, I've never noticed because I've never, you know, been on it when they've turned on the air conditioning. I don't know what it's going to be like on a plane, to be honest. You know, actually, that's an interesting point. How hot is it necessarily on the plane? Obviously, it's probably not going to be that hot because, you know, when you're up like however many miles up in the air, the temperatures get like sub 10, sub 20, minus 20, sub 30. I realize saying sub 20 on its own just makes it sound like lower than 20 degrees Celsius, which is not all that impressive, but it gets very, very cold outside of the actual cabin, the actual airplane itself, when you're so high up in the air where the air is thinner. What notifications can we even do? This is buying things, that's a bit annoying. Cooking things, catch bugs, fish. Oh, these are all really annoying. I don't want to do any of them, I'm going to be honest. I guess we'll catch fish. Maybe we'll get some sharks. No, I don't want to do any of them. Oh, but I should, because what else am I going to do for like 10 more minutes? We can cook up a storm. I guess we could do that. That's not very interesting though. Okay, well, we'll do some fishing. We haven't done fishing for ages. Screw CJ's challenge, I can't be bothered to do it. So we're not going to do that in the slightest. Isn't that weird how CJ's got a challenge, but Flick doesn't? I guess Flick's probably was quite difficult to do because, you don't, depending on when you do it with different bugs you'll get, you know, there might not be enough bugs for you to really, like, catch for your thing. But there's always fish on Animal Crossing. Anyway, sorry, let me have a sip of water. And again, I'm getting quite dehydrated probably because I'm speaking so much. And it's important to stay hydrated and make sure that the hot weather doesn't claim you too. But of course we're about 5 PM, 5:30 now, getting to almost 6. I mean, it's a bit ambitious to say almost 6, but oh, hold on, is that an earth-boring dung beetle? I believe it is an earth-boring dung beetle, which means that we can actually get another Nook Mile mission done. Catching bugs we should probably do as well, because catching bugs is actually incredibly easy. Yeah, but we're getting down into the cooler hours of the day, so it's not too bad, I think, at this point. And honestly, hold on, you know, what if I check my phone and the temperatures are changed once again? Nope, still 36. Well, it's starting to go down. It's 34 still at 7 PM. That's crazy. And tomorrow it's going up to 38, which is just insanity at 2 PM. And it stays that way all the way until 7 when it goes down to 33 degrees. So it's going to be pretty hot. Like, I'm looking at it. It's like 23 degrees at midnight. That's like, when I was young, I'd be like, oh, that's quite a warm day. And that's at midnight. What on earth? Hopefully it won't actually be quite that warm, but, you know, we'll sort of have to hope and see. But yeah, it's not just UK going under, you know, the heat wave. As I say, I'd imagine a lot of countries in Europe are going through some heat wave thing right now. Obviously, I'm just talking about the UK because the UK is what I know best because I live here. So it's a lot easier for me to, you know, get local news, I suppose, that way rather than through the general temperature situation in other European countries. Not that I don't doubt it's also, you know, rather hot and all that in jazz. I don't know, because I've been to China and Japan quite a few times, and obviously everywhere I stayed in China and Japan, which most of the times I've been in the summer, they always had air conditioning, I think. Like, I can't think of a time where it didn't have air conditioning. Like, even the places we stayed at Japan, it was extraordinarily hot. We basically had air conditioning on all the time. Because it's just how hot it was. No, not all the time when we left. I mean, all the time when we were staying there. Actually, that's the thing. Like, my friend I went with, like, he wanted the air conditioning on, you know, even while we weren't there. So when we got back, it was all cool. And I was like, we can't do that. We're not going to be here for like 12 hours. That's like such a waste of electricity. Is what I said. And I was like, you know, you just have like 5 minutes of uncomfort while you come back into the place where we were staying at. Just to turn on the air conditioning. So it's not too bad. But they all had air conditioning, perhaps unsurprisingly. This feels like a shark. I was going to say I was taking forever to fish out. I don't think we have a hammerhead shark statue, so we might as well keep this one. Hello, Rowan. What are you thinking about, Rowan? Want to stop by? We've got about 5 minutes, so I'm going to say I can't right now, Rowan. Maybe a different day. Maybe if you asked me, like... Actually, you were thinking much earlier on in this episode, and we probably could have done it. I just, you know, ignored you. We haven't done a fishing one for ages, which we should certainly do, because we have missions, you know, the perpetual mile missions to, you know, fish out a certain amount of fish, or, you know, catch a certain amount of bugs, etc., which we just don't tend to do because we caught everything by now. So yeah, it's getting pretty hot. But they've always had air conditioning in the places I stay. Like, you know, I've stayed with my grandparents in China. They've always had air conditioning, that sort of thing. That's kind of how you just deal with those sort of hot summer months. Like, dealing with this sort of temperatures without air conditioning, I hear is quite a nightmare. I mean, it's just... It would turn anyone, I think, rather cynical to hear these sort of stories as you go on, as you get older, and, you know, someone sort of growing up during this generation, you know. Things like, oh, you hear people in Texas, like, not knowing how to deal with snow because now they're getting snow for, like, the first time in whatever many years, and, you know, it's sort of like the inverted situation for what's going on right now. You know, UK, you know, we, despite the fact, you know, just like in Texas, I assume the winters got colder and colder, UK, but the summers get hotter and hotter, and, you know, we're still very unprepared to deal with these sort of situations in the first place. No, I think it can make anyone, you know, mildly cynical, I suppose, with the whole climate situation going on in the world right now, being like, oh, you know, it's only going to get worse from here. And it probably is only going to get worse from here, but I suppose if you stay with that sort of not negative attitude, but if you stay cynical for the entire thing, you sort of lose all hope, which is not exactly something I'm particularly keen on doing. I can't believe that fish just completely ignored me. It's not something I'm particularly keen on doing, you know. I like to, you know, have hope for the future, etc., etc. even if it does start looking, oh my gosh, ocean sandfish start looking quite dire, I suppose, for, you know, environmental purposes in future. I'm sorry, it's getting quite a distressing tone. It's not really the tone I meant to take this entire conversation on. Hold on a minute. Oh, wait, yes, okay, 6 PM. I was just looking over to my YouTube being like, wait a minute, there's no new YouTube video for today. I mean, I thought about it, it's like, oh wait, yeah, they get published at 6 PM, not 3 PM. So I don't need to worry about that yet. But now we can make some whatever cupcakes. I swear like a whole new message came up before that one actually got revealed to us. I don't know what that was all about. But anyway, we're going to sell our stuff and then we'll probably round up this episode here. So hopefully you're all managing to keep rather cool in this heat. If you have air conditioning, definitely use it. If you don't have a fan, set up a clothes horse in front of it and then, you know, put some damp or wet towels on it. I don't know, it's called like a condensation cooler. I don't know how effective it is, but, you know, it's probably pretty good if people are talking about it online. Okay, so we don't sell that, because I don't think we have these as, at least I don't believe we have these as actual statues yet, but I might be wrong. I suppose we could check. You also might be like, oh, what about that conversation thread you had like a couple days ago where you were just like, oh, you're trying to find a hairstyle that, you know, that you like, which also works in the summer heat and is also relatively simple to do rather than being particularly involved and, you know, holds pretty well. You'd be happy to know I settled on the good old half updo bun, and then instead of having it, it's kind of more of a full updo, because then I take the lower half and braid it and put the braid around the bun, so it's more like a braided bun, I suppose, now I think about it. I don't see a hammerhead and I don't see an ocean sunfish, so I think those are indeed things we're missing. You want to do a thing? Sorry, Biscuit. We don't got time. We got to round off this episode here because we're done with this episode. So yeah, keep cool. Air conditioning, great. Man's greatest invention. I don't know, keeping cool. I suppose is probably what I'll title this episode. I'm not really sure, so, but you know, the heat wave, it will be over soon, hopefully, and hopefully it won't happen again. But I know that all probably will. But at least we'll be prepared for it. So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Any likes, comments, very rude, Vivian. Any likes, comments, description, shares are greatly appreciated. Join me Dear Darling Discord. Follow me on Twitter. Or join me Dear Darling Discord down below. Hope you see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time. Bye-bye for now. Forgot what the ending thing I say is.